welcome back to Lucore Automotive Services. Today I'm going to spend a little time on the dyno with the Austin's AMX. I kind of want to make sure that this carburetor is doing the best things that it can do, and then we're going to pull this carburetor off of it and actually put a different system on it. That'll be another day. Right now I'm still trying to learn how to interpret the readings from the dyno. Learned a lot on the Chevelle we worked on the other day, picked up an additional 40 horsepower, usable horsepower. Still got some work to probably pick up another 20 horsepower out of that with the 870 carb that's on it. But I'm not sure the customer even cares. That thing's got so much power and torque that he might actually be a little bit afraid of that. So he's probably going to have to get used to driving that thing now that it's making some real numbers. But you know, it's making, what did we come up with, 370 wheel horsepower and 460 or 480 torque, something like that. Pretty respectable for an 870 carb with vacuum secondary. It really should be a mechanical secondary on that car because it's a stick shift. But it's what we had to work with, so we made it work. That is his actual daily driver. That is his only car. So it's a good way to be retired if you ask me. But today we're going to work on the AMX. I'm going to do a baseline pull just to see where it's at. We're going to check timing. And then we'll probably, this one is square jetted, so we're going to try and go to a power valve. So we'll see where it sits. We'll make a power valve and jetting change, and we'll see where we go from there. Let's make our first pull. Well, first run, 195 at 5,000 RPM and 252 torque at 3370 RPM. Not too bad. Looks like we need to make a pump cam change and a squirter change. That should clean this up. And then we'll see what happens there. Looks like we're over jetted, so we're going to reduce our jets a little bit. So we're going to make quite a few changes. I'm going to change my jets and do a power valve up front. I'm going to start with an 8.5. We'll see how that works. We'll see if this thing can make even better fuel efficiency with a power valve instead of being square jetted. It's already getting like 18 miles a gallon, which is pretty darn good. I'm going to guess we're going to get it into the low 20s once it's jetted correctly. But it's hard to keep your foot out of it when you're driving this thing around. So that's for pull number one. Let's work on the pump cam, squirter, and what?
She might not be fast, but she sounds good.
It may not be fast, but it's loud.
Sounds fantastic.
195 at 5,000 RPM. All right, pull number two. One change, no air cleaner. So we're just running an open carb. Let's see what that gains us.
Trina finished her beaver nuggets off.
The beaver nuggets.
Yeah, from Bucky's.
Oh,
You never had Bucky's beaver nuggets?
no, I've never had Bucky's beaver nuggets.
Oh man, I'll have to bring you a bag.
That sounds weird. I'm going to tuck your bumper.
Yeah,
I'm going to suck it right up to the back of the car.
just cleave off the 5-mile-an-hour stuff in the back.
The
and just
5 mile an
pull it
hour
in.
stuff can go away, and it's just going to get mounted flush to the back of the car. I'm going to do the same on the front.
Yeah,
That's going to look a lot better.
I agree.
Not that.
Well,
I mean,
especially
we're
with this-
polishing a turd, but
with this fill panel missing, or at least most of it. Yeah, just pull it in like 3 inches. Yeah. This thing does sound really good.
it sounds really good. We just picked up 5 horse by taking off the air cleaner. Who knew?
And no fan.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the fan. All right, let me make some changes. I'm going to do a jetting change. All right, so I made a quick adjustment. I just changed the pink cam to a blue cam to see if I can get overly rich on tip-in, and then I'm going to reduce my squirter if that's what I end up seeing. So we're going to give it a pull, see what it says, see what the dyno tells us. Alright, so blue is my last run, red is my current run. So the blue pump cam gave us 5 horsepower and 11 foot-pounds of torque. Well, I would say that's a good improvement. My graph I'm still not liking, but we'll work on that yet. I might reduce the pump shop to see if that makes a change. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and remove the carburetor, make my jet and power valve change. And this is actually a carb cheater, which we're going to remove from this car. We'll probably use it in something else that's a pretty cool interface device for built by Thunderhead 289 on his channel. He talks about them quite a bit. I think Austin did a install video on it. It's basically a controlled vacuum leak that has a Wi-Fi connection, and it lets you know exactly what's going on in your engine while you're driving down the road. It's pretty cool. But we're going to pull it off this car because this guy needs some different jetting, just because I want to make it better, or as good as I can make it. And then ultimately, this engine's going to be coming out of this car, but I wanted to make sure I had it tuned as good as I could get it with this carb, because this carb's going to probably stay with this engine in the future. So let me get the carb off there, and we'll get some of this other stuff out of the way, and we'll make some changes. Well, Austin thought this was square jet, but it's got a power valve in it, so let's get that off of there. Looks like we got a little dryer out there. Put a new vacuum cap on that guy. He's not doing much of anything. Looks like that guy's getting ready to go too, so we might as well replace him while we're in there. Yeah. Take our carb cheater spacer off of there. Which is a controlled vacuum leak. Oh yeah, don't leave your lug nuts loose on your Dodge trucks. These are $16.79 a piece. Holy cow, Mopar. So we have a 6.5 power valve. We're going to change from a 6.5 to an 8.5 and see if we get a little better enrichment sooner. What are our jet sizes? Alright, so we have 69 main jets and a 6.5 power valve. We're going to switch our power valve to an 8.5 because this car pulls 17-18 inches of vacuum cruising steady down the road in fourth gear. So we're going to try an 8.5 to get that enrichment a little bit sooner. Hopefully that'll clean up our tip in. I'm going to leave the jets the same because at the top side it's running at a decent amount. So we'll stick with the 69 main jets. 69 is always a fun number. We'll stick with that. I decided I have it off the car. Might as well check the back side. We have 74 mains in the back, and it's a block plate, so it's just running straight jets on the back. I'm going to put this thing back together. I didn't find any trash or debris inside the float bowls, so we're looking pretty good. I think I'm going to replace that gasket. It's looking a little decrepit. Might as well do this one on the plate too, since I'm in here. Well, I decided, you can see there's a substantial amount more fuel delivery with the blue cam than the pink cam. So I'm going to put a blue cam in the secondary and a blue cam back into the primary so that they're both they both have the same pump shot going on. I think it's going to work well. I think we're going to see a decent improvement in our graph of our power, but we're going to try that. My back end's all put back together with new gaskets. You can see it was pretty bad, probably over tightened a time or two, but that one's all sealed up. My pump diaphragm is acting good. It doesn't show any signs of having any problems. So I'll get my blue cam in the back side, my blue cam on the front side. We'll put this thing back down with a spacer. Make a pull. So the blue pump cam actually is too big for the rear circuit. When it goes full wide open, I don't know how I can do this. It's actually binding the pump. So we're not going to use a blue cam in that because that'll be bad for business. So interesting little factoid with this setup. The blue cam, the green cam, and the orange cam in the secondaries bottoms out the pump. We don't want to bottom out our pump. We want to have at full wide open throttle, we want to be able to put a 15 thou shim in there. Feeler gauge. When it's at full extension, and none of these three allow that. So we may be sticking to the pink in the backside. We'll see. Even the pink cam binds the pump. That's weird. Well, I guess we're going to stick with the pink cam in the secondaries for now. And we'll figure out pump cam stuff later on that. But yeah, that's kind of awkward. Because you're supposed to have a clearance between here at full extension. We'll figure that out later. I've heard of people bending these arms to get better adjustment, but I wouldn't think you should have to do that. But I don't know. I don't know a lot. And that's okay. I'm learning as I go. Oh yeah, I'm a dummy. You shorten this guy up, that'll change your depth and allow you to clearance that for the bigger cam. So let's put our blue cam back here. We'll adjust our linkage spring bolt so that we have clearance at full extension. That way we won't have our bind and we'll have more fuel pump. So let's go back to a blue cam instead of me fiddle farting around with stuff, because I'm still learning. Alright, so I have my blue cam in my position 1 on my secondaries, and I'm going to tighten up my linkage adjuster. And we'll see where that ends up being. It's going to be, you can see it's actually loose right now. Let's tighten that guy up. Still too tight, I think. Yep. Tighten that guy up a little more. Better. There we go. Now we're not binding. Good deal. So I'm expecting to see an improvement with fuel rate at the tip-in area and the early RPM stuff. I raised my power valve. Let's put this thing back on the car and see what it does. Made some good improvements. I finally understand the adjustment process on the linkages, because at full open throttle you want to have 15 thousandths shim be able to pass through there so you're not bottomed out, because it creates binding on the linkages, and it can cause accelerated wear to different bits. So let's put this thing back on. I've got blue cams front and rear. And everything looks to be good. Alright, so we're going to use a Jegs phenolic carburetor spacer. This one's a 4-hole, just like the Carb Cheater one that we had on here. Comes with bolts, 2 gaskets, hardware, pretty nice little kit. The gaskets fit well. Get rid of this old one. In a box. And we'll save those for later. Drop a carb back down, hook everything up. I gotta go find some vacuum caps, and we should be in business. Turn my idle speed down here. That'll work. I think a better built system's in this car's near future. Except those are expensive. Sounds pretty good. I like it. Let's pick up my vacuum, see where our timing is since that's disconnected. Looks like we are a little lazy. We need to give it some more timing. So let's make a pull with the timing where it's at. And then we'll make a pull with the timing advanced another probably 8 degrees to get it where it needs to be. Man, that sounds good. All right, what do we got? 210 at 44.9 and 269 torque at 3,180 RPM. Well, that's pretty cool. So we've made almost a 5 horsepower improvement each run on the last 4 runs. That's pretty awesome. 195, 201, 206, 210 at the wheels. I'm pretty happy with that. Red one, so I'm actually going rich now initially, and then it leans out, and then probably secondaries are going in and leaning out. So let's reduce our shooters and see what kind of a change that makes. But yeah, it's a good change. Nice linear power too. Alright, I'm going to make another pull real quick. I adjusted my shooter size down. It was a 32 in the rear. I went down to a 28. And it was a 31 in the front, which I also went down to a 28. We'll see if that makes any changes. I want to see that high-low kind of come closer together. And I think that's where it's going to come into play. I mean, we're not doing bad. 210 to the wheels on a 304. That's pretty respectable. I mean, that's got to be, what, probably 250, 260 at the crank, somewhere around there. I don't know. Maybe more than that. I don't know what the driveline loss is on this car. I would say 20% is probably a good guess. Let's fire it up and see if we made it better or worse. We got some door hinges. I need some driver door hinges for a Spirit. Well, we negatively impacted our horsepower. We lost 5 horsepower, but our graph is in a better place, so that's good. You can see the blue line's the last run, which gave us 210. Oh, 211. This run, we went rich, we stayed rich, and then we had a little lean hiccup here. I haven't quite figured out what part of the circuitry is doing that. That might be the secondary pump shot, because I moved them both smaller, which brought me more rich, both in the initial tip-in and then the secondary tip-in, which is what I'm guessing that is. And then we go down pretty fat, and then we end up, so we could probably take some jet out of this now that we're coming into it where we need to be, and taking jet out of it will raise our horsepower across the band. So I may go one jet size smaller on the primaries and see what that does. Looking pretty good. We only lost 3 foot-pounds of torque, but we lost 5 horsepower. But we're in a much safer range, only getting up to 13.5, so that would be safe for streeting. But we'll definitely take some jet out of it. Or do you take the jet out of the secondaries? That's a question. I suppose I could just run it on the primaries. This is a progressive mechanical secondary. I don't know how I'd do that. Disconnect the linkage and hold the primaries shut. Tune the primaries till they're where I want them, and then add the secondaries to it. That's probably how you want to do that. But we're making improvements. I like it. So secondary shooter change on the secondaries only, from a 28 to a 25. Make that shot last longer. Hopefully it'll take some of that second peak out. And that'll verify that that second peak is the secondary transition. All the way across the board, I'm pretty happy with it. After that, I'm going to add some timing back into it. Let's make this run with the secondary shooter change. And it did drop that secondary spot, so the shooter change was beneficial. Lost power again, but we're running fatter all the way across the board, so we need to take some jet out of it. I'm going to drop the mains of one tick, see what that gains us. We're probably going to go down 2 on the secondaries. You can see the change, only changing the pump shooter made. That graph's basically the same, but then the peak, the secondary peak is less. So, pretty good. Let me add some timing into it, because our timing is not really great. Alright, we increased our timing. It was pretty lazy, so I just added probably 8 degrees of timing to it. So we should see a nice gain from that. Save. Oh, lost more power. It's also getting hotter. 196. What'd you do, Richard? We'll take some main out of it. You made it worse. But I also made it safer. Let's see. That's pretty. We can definitely bring that up quite a bit with jet change. So that'll be next. I'm gonna let this car cool down. I'll probably pull the carb off again to do the jets on the front. It's kind of tight in there on this car. Nothing's dripping out the bottom. That's pretty good for an AMX, or any AMC for that matter. Well, I've made headway. The last 3 changes I made actually reduced my overall horsepower. But my torque stayed pretty close. So I dropped from 269.16 torque at 3100 to 258 at 3060. I went down from 210 at 4900 to 196 at 4300. So, but you can see I'm way better in my tip ins, and this is so subtle I don't think it's anything to worry about. So now I'll focus on my mains, bring those down a little bit to lean it out, and we should see the horsepower and torque probably rise a bit because it'll be running cleaner, especially in this spot. So that'll be next. Let's see what we can do about that. We may try some different pump cams too, but the blue one's working pretty good. Well, like I said, I'm going to let this thing cool down. I'll pull the carb off. I'm going to go down 2 jet sizes in the front, and then we'll fire it up and see what it does the next time we fire it up. We might take some of that timing back out of it too, because it lost quite a bit with that advance. So, like 5 horsepower. Oh no. Actually, the timing advance gained us a horsepower and a foot-pound of torque. So it basically didn't do anything. Alright, well, I messed around with some other stuff in the shop while this thing cooled down. I dropped the primary main jets from 69s to 67s. It should bring our AFRs up across the board. And we'll see where that is. This will be the last pull for today, probably the last pull for this video. I have to take the O2 sensor out of the exhaust, and then the rest of the carb cheater can be put in a box for its next destination. I'm not sure what that's going to be. And then I'll pull this thing off the rack and move it down the line. I actually might get my Buick down here and play with it a little bit on the dyno. It's got some room for improvement on it as well. So let's get this thing up to temperature, get the carb bowls filled up with fuel, make a pull. Save. Ooh, that's a lot more lean. That was a huge lean pop, yep. Lean stumble. Wow, that was up to 16 to 1. And we get down to we're still below 12.5 for the second half of it. So maybe go up one jet. Oh, I lost a ton of power. 176 and 238, so I'm definitely going to put more jet back into it. Let's make another pull just to compare the same to the same. What did I do? Oh my goodness. Let's make another pull just to compare apples to apples. Secondaries are definitely not opening all the way. Ouch! That explains a lot. His throttle cable's turned into a slinky. Need a solid casing sleeve. The casing of the throttle cable is collapsing on itself, so now we have slack in the throttle. So I'll find a new slot, ouch, hot, a new sleeve for the throttle cable, but that's not going to happen today. So to be continued, I guess. I'm going to fix the throttle cable. I'm just going to make a new casing for my throttle cable. This stuff is actually a steel core with a thicker cable, and you can see the old one got all heat disfigured, and so the casing was actually shrinking and not allowing the carburetor to open. So hopefully we'll see a substantial change in our output now that we have proper full opening of our throttle cable and our throttle actuator. So without further ado, let's warm this thing up and see what it does. Float level needs to come up a hair. Little lean tip in. So I need more pump shot. 224.47 at 4,600. 281.87 torque at 3,400. Well, it works a lot better when the carburetor's opening all the way, doesn't it? That guy there. So when I tip in, I need more fuel. So I'm going to go to a bigger pump shot and see what that does for us. A bigger shooter, so I want more fuel faster. I think my pump cam is probably okay, but we'll play with it a little bit. Alright, so I took my shooters back up to 32s. I had some really small ones in there, and that should bring those initial peaks down more rich. And we'll see where we're at, and then we'll make some changes from there. Now that I've overcome the mystery power loss that was my throttle cable shrinking and my carburetor wasn't opening up enough, now I have that problem solved and we have maximum throttle engagement. 224 wheel is pretty impressive out of a mildly built 304. It's not a high compression engine. It wasn't a super expensive build. Pretty happy with the numbers, and honestly, if I get the lean stumble worked out of it, that's probably as far as we're going to go with this, because we have a plan to go a different direction with this. But I wanted to get the carburetor as close as possible, because it's going to be essentially a backup carburetor for when this thing's out running around. It will have the carburetor in the trunk with the things to hook it into in case the other system happens to decide not to work, just as a safety backup to be able to not have to worry about being broken down. Which is why we're doing the tuning. But we're also showing you what it takes to tune these carburetors. And I'm learning carburetors as I'm doing this stuff, because, you know, when I started working on cars in 92, everything I worked on was fuel injected. So we look at fuel trims. Fuel trim's taking fuel out. It's either got an exhaust leak, or it's got a leaking injector, or, you know, it's seeing it has too much fuel and it's trying to take fuel away. So it's got a misfire, or, you know, whatever. We read the data and we make decisions on what solutions we're going to do by looking at the data that it gives us. Carburetors don't give us data. The dyno gives us data, which we can use to tune the carburetor better. It's a lot faster than making a change, taking a rundown, using your seat of the pants dyno. But it still takes time. So I changed my jets. We're going to make one more pull, see where it's at. Oh, that came down a lot. But it ends up pig rich, doesn't it? Maybe too much pump cam. Maybe go back to a pink pump cam. We could probably go to a bigger shooter, which would deliver more fuel sooner, so that we're getting it sooner instead of later. Let's go to a 35 if I have one on the shooter, because that made a admirable change. Our max power went down to 213.98. Torque went down 274.17. But it's not running near as lean on that stumble tip in. Still goes pretty fat. I gotta clean that up a little bit more. Let's see what we can. I went from a blue cam to a green cam. I'm gonna try that. I'm only gonna run to like 3,000 RPM. Just want to see what the difference in the graph is, so that I understand which part of the graph I'm moving for better AFR. And we'll see what it does. I'm gonna leave with 32 shooters in the front and rear, because I was actually getting initial rich and lean, so see if the blue green cam in the front makes a positive or negative change. And our throttle's opening all the way down too, so that's a bonus. Well, that green cam brought us down a lot better. I guess we need to do a full pull and see what we look like across the board. So this blue line was a blue cam, this is a green cam. So the primary is better, the secondary is pretty much the same. Let's put a green cam in the secondary as well. And then we'll probably need to remove some shooter out of it. Let's go green cam on the secondary. And this is splitting hairs here too, guys. Like, this is completely drivable the way it is. Alright, so I changed my secondary pump cam to green cam. Let's see if that makes our graph lower on that second. It should. And then I'll probably take a little shooter out of both of them. I think it'll be probably as good as it's going to get. It looks like I might be able to pull some more jet out of the front with the power valve working as it does. So we might try that last, but let's just see what it does. That's what we're doing here, is just trying different things to see what it does and see how it moves our graph around so that I can better understand what I'm reading when I'm reading the graphs coming off of this dyno. Pretty cool stuff. I've learned a lot. Hopefully you guys have learned a lot with it as well. And I'm going to make another pull. Let's see what we see. Hey, look at that. So 214, 271. And I can take some jet out of this thing. The question is, do I want to take it out of the front or the back? I'm thinking the front, because that'll bring everything up. I've got good linear power. We go tip in and we go rich, and then we go rich again. Let's reduce our shooter size a little more and see if that raises this bottom guy here. See if a smaller shooter will bring him up. I think it will. And then this is probably going to be power valve delivery enrichment, so we can take some main jet out of the front, and that should raise this up a little bit, I think. Let's see. Actually, take jet out of it might raise it all the way from here to there and raise it up entirely. We'll see how she works. so that last run did pretty good. It made 212, 271, which is still not the peak that we've gotten so far, but the peak that we got was a little bit leaner, so I'm actually going to take some jet out of the primaries. It was 67s, I'm going down to 65s. I also decided to try a different power valve, so unfortunately this time the carb's off. We're making 2 changes on the front, but I'm expecting to see that heavy rich after the primary and secondary cycle. It sweeps heavy rich, and then it gradually gets up to about 12 to 1. So I'm taking 2 jet sizes out of the front, and I'm lowering the vacuum pulse on the power valve, so it will actually engage a little bit later, if I'm thinking about it correctly, but we'll figure that out here in a minute. Let me put this carb back together, we'll stick it back on there. And I think this is going to be the last pull for today, because we have other plans for this car, and they don't include a carburetor. But we have definitely had some fun, and I've definitely learned a lot about what my dyno is telling me on the different circuits as they are changing around and doing what they need to do. I went from a blue cam to a green cam today, which really changed my fuel delivery, and it's much, much happier than what it was. So that's good. Alright, I dropped my jets from 67s down to 65s. I dropped my power valve from an 8.5 to a 7.5. We're going to make one more pull, we'll see what it does. And that's probably going to be it for today. Double check that I have any fuel leaks, my bowl's full. Not too bad, not leaking anything. It didn't spit the drive shaft out or anything. Not making enough power to probably do that. 209. I made it worse. This car likes to run fat. 267. Alright. Well, that's our max power today, and it made 224 at 44.6, and we just made 209 at 44.8. So that's pretty wild. This area here should be for power valve, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. This carburetor is running very well for what this thing's doing. And we will move on to bigger and better things. Oh, my lens is dirty. Let's see it. Well, there you go. Some AMC AMX love. We're getting ready to do some other stuff to it too. That'll probably be up on Friday. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Click like, subscribe, leave us a comment below. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.